How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi, host of Tier Talk, and Rikers is on the news again. You know, the last 6 weeks, these officers, they're getting assaulted hard. It's not even about the numbers of assaults. It's about the severity of the assault. You know, 6 weeks ago, you had an officer who had a piece of his spine fractured. You know, got jumped by 5 inmates. Then you had a female officer trying to stop a fight, you know, out to protect, gets her jaw broke. Another officer gets his face slashed. Boom, can't even find the weapon. But this officer got his face slashed right down the side of his face. And then you have, yesterday, another officer doing his job, professional, gets hit with scalding water. And then after he gets burned, the inmate starts popping him in the face. You know, this is reality, but for Rikers, their officers don't feel that they're being protected. They feel that the changes that are being made in Rikers are very isolated, if you will. You know, they're changes that were only meant to help the population and kind of leave staff in the wind, you know, leaving staff very vulnerable. You know, and that's the problem when you have people without experience making changes. They don't see the domino effect. They don't see the final domino fall. And that's where experienced staff will help and tell you, hey, listen, sounds good on paper, but reality is this. And lately, they're being ignored. The front line's being ignored. So when we come back from our sponsors, we're going to talk about what's going on at Rikers. As always, guys, the show is Tier Talk. Please, if you haven't, subscribe to the channel, interact, engage, and hit that bell. That bell's going to notify you every time I post up a video. I stand by for our sponsors.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
Being a corrections officer takes its toll on even the strongest individuals. The constant need to perform at the highest level, putting your life at risk in a hostile environment, and the mental scarring of traumatic experiences. 31% of corrections officers show symptoms of PTSD, and 66% of people with PTSD also suffer with a substance abuse problem. The Transformations First Responders program is specially designed to help veterans and officers heal from the grips of addiction and PTSD in a comfortable, supportive, and serene setting. You are not alone. If you have questions about the services we offer, give us a call at 866-762-8454 to get more information on this affordable and life-changing program.
Thank you guys for listening to our sponsors. You know, a lot of changes are happening at Rikers Island, very isolated changes. The people in the higher positions, they kind of look for changes that are immediate, and they're not realizing, okay, there's a domino here, there's a domino effect, and they don't understand how that last domino will fall because they don't have the experience to do so. That's why I always tell people, when you want to make changes, go to the front line. They'll tell you things that you may not be aware of that go past the immediate. And right now, we're seeing the domino effect. We're seeing the dominoes fall. And people that made the changes, they weren't prepared for this. But they're also not stepping up saying, hey, we made a mistake. They're actually making it a lot worse. These isolated changes have made it very vulnerable for staff. And one of the biggest changes that we're talking about is going to be what some consider punitive segregation. The union calls it punitive segregation. Again, there's no punitive segregation for anyone 21 and under. To me, punitive segregation is such a specific term and only really limits the use of what it's for. A more general term would just be administrative segregation or restrictive housing. And that would highlight its use outside of just the punitive. And we talked about that. I think the word punitive scares people. And I think that if we're going to try to affect the balance change, we have to kind of say all aspects of what administrative segregation does. It's not just punitive. I mean, yeah, it is to some extent because you need that immediate action or the reaction from our end to deter. Inmates have to know what they did was wrong, and there has to be a punishment set forth. And again, that's conditioning. You know, you did something wrong, you hit them with this, and eventually we're hoping that they turn around. Now, of course, some people believe that punishment doesn't work. Okay, fine, but it's an immediate preventive measure as well. It's an immediate preventive measure, no different than what you would do on the streets if someone did something foolish. You remove them from the public. Same thing here. An inmate does something foolish in an effort to protect and serve, we have to remove that inmate. And yes, we'll get to that inmate. We'll rehabilitate, but not now. Now it's about safety and security. Now it's about doing something to make sure that this individual doesn't have the opportunity to do that type of assault again. And that is a needed tool. That's why that tool is needed. You can argue the punitive aspect. Again, I feel that works as well. But what you cannot argue is the preventive measure behind why we use segregation. And I think the unions got to stop throwing out the word punitive. That's just my opinion. It's not an attack on them. But they got to stop throwing out the word punitive. They got to start also saying that it's a preventive measure that's meant to protect us on an immediate level. And again, we'll get to the inmates eventually. If you're concerned about rehabilitation and corrective behavior, we'll get to them. But right now, we have to worry about this. That comes first. Also, the concern is the population that limited segregation is used on. Like, you cannot use segregation at Rikers for inmates that are 21 and under. That's a very impulsive group, very young. A lot of their actions are hard to predict because they don't even know. You know, and it's been proven by psychologists, right, that their mind's not there. It's not developed yet. So they don't even know their behaviors. So now here we are. We can't predict it because they don't even know it. So that opens us up to assaults and nothing we can do about it. And then the other avenue is that they're also easily manipulated. So when you have the other gang members that are looking to utilize someone to do something foolish, why not utilize the young inmates? You can't punish them. You can't do anything with them. And the young inmates, they haven't matured. They're most likely easier to manipulate and they will follow. And now you have another concern. You have concerns that these gang members or these older inmates are using the younger inmates to commit crimes or assaults on staff, and they're going unpunished. And again, it's just sad that nobody saw that. If you would have asked people from the front line, they would have saw that. And they would have said, listen, we know you want to create this good intent, but you got to realize something. This goes past the immediate. This is all the dominoes that's going to happen. And this is the last one that's going to fall. And if you don't come to us, you're not going to know that. Because you don't have the experience to see that last domino fall. Well, now, it's fell. It's gone. It's fallen. Staff is getting hurt left and right. So now, you don't have that excuse to say you didn't know. Now it's on the table. So what do we do now to protect the protectors? What do we do now to make sure that they know we have their back? Because I'm going to tell you something. The reason why we have to get those inmates out of that population is because to let staff know, hey, listen, we care. We got you. That inmate wants to do something foolish, we got you. Remove that inmate immediately. And then we're hoping in the effort to remove that inmate, that not only does it deter that inmate who did something foolish, for the next time, but it also should prevent others from doing stuff foolish. Now, if you don't have that tool, well, custody may be like, you know what? Then we have to make one ourselves because no one seems to care. And I'm not saying that's the right thing, but that could be a lot of reasons for the tension. A lot of reason for the tension is when the custody members don't feel that anyone's got their back, or staff members don't feel that anyone's got their back, then they step up and they protect themselves because they have to. They have to out of desperation. And then we got to ask ourselves, why? And then we got to go back and look at what we've done. Changes that were isolated. So again, it's just my opinion. But as always, the show is Tier Talk. Guys, if you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, and hit that bell. That bell's going to notify you every time I post up a video. And for those brave men and women who work at Rikers, stay safe. Stay safe.